Hi, I'm Ian.
And I'm Martin, and we're from the band Chvrches. Lauren is not here today, she is very sick. But we're here to talk about our live setup and how we took this record from the studio into the live realm.
In the beginning, we'd written maybe 6 or 7 songs, and then we put the song "Lies" on the Neon Gold blog at the time, and then realised that people were actually quite interested in hearing what we were doing. And round about that same point, we realised that we were going to have to learn how to play this stuff live, which we'd never really thought of doing up to that point because we were really just a kind of studio-based writing project. And so, yeah, it was just a little bit of a logistical brainstorming period where we were figuring out what we could play and what we needed on stage and what would look good. And
Well, I mean, crucially, we were on a budget, but we're never the people that would have been satisfied with turning up with like just a playback rig and maybe a synth each and just sort of karaokeing our way through the show. That was never going to happen. It was always important to us that we harnessed the same analog synths that we used in the studio on the stage, and whilst that has proved costly over time, it's something we still feel pretty strongly about. So yeah, a show the way that we run things would have been next to impossible maybe 10 to 15 years ago, just because of the way that computer processing power has increased exponentially, and there's a lot of intricacies, things like the way that we run our live monitoring setup, which saves us thousands of pounds per tour on a monitoring engineer. That's all running through the same kind of master computer that does the rest of the live show. And of course, that same computer is running all the program changes for the analog synths that we use.
some effects as well.
And some effects, yeah.
And we do all that through Ableton Live. So in the session view, we're able to have like different scenes. For example, send more of Martin's backing vocal to his ears and less to Lauren's as the song progresses. So yeah, I don't really know how that would be possible without using Ableton. Yes, exactly. We're using clips to send MIDI changes and effects changes to the synths in real time and stuff.
Yeah, but I have a satellite station like on the other side of the stage, which is just a MIDI controller that is not really running VSTs. It runs like one soft in the whole show. The rest, all the time, it's playing one of the analog synths.
So again, using clips in scenes to like switch the routing from one synth to another for Martin, so we kind of swap about.
It kind of differs. Like all of the stuff that's bass frequencies and like bass lines, that all goes out on a separate channel to front of house. Where we mix down internally is in a few of the more kind of high end sounds, and the more there's like pads and there's like a stereo mix for that stuff. But we have control over things like kick, snare, vocals, of course, guitar, bass. The really important stuff, and there's just a stereo file for the stuff that kind of should be able to blend together.
But I think that's something that's probably going to change over time when we expand the I/O setup. Like at the moment, we've got 828s running, but we've got 2 of them, and they'll be on like a switcher, like 2 computers, 2 828s, so that if something goes down, it switches over to the other one seamlessly.
Is that an automatic switcher?
Yeah, it's a radial switcher, I think, but we haven't quite got it working yet, but we'll probably have it working in the next few shows.
Yeah, the rack that we use has tripled in size in the last
48 hours.
Well, we just doubled up everything that we had. Added a bunch. We needed 2 of everything effectively in order to make this. It's the classic AB kind of rig that everyone uses these days. But when your whole show sort of relies on a machine, that I think we were just taking too many risks. Like if one computer dies, I remember we played a show in Los Angeles about a year ago.
Yeah, the Echo Lounge.
And we went soundcheck, fine. Came back to the venue, turned on the computer, and it was like one of the motors was dead. Well, the only motor that we had was dead, and it was a power conditioning thing. But that was a room full of people, 15 minutes to show, and it was like, this is
going to be a riot.
This is cancelled. Like, I don't know what, I'm just going to go and hide upstairs and wait for everyone to leave. But
that's a terrifying thought, you know.
We don't take those
barricading yourself in the dressing room. There's no jamming.
No, there'll be no jamming. The mics are split from a Clark Technic box to front of house, so we can still talk to people.
Yeah.
We could like harmonise or something, but you know.
A cappella churches. Well, our album is mostly, I would say, hardware synth based. There's a few little bits and pieces of VSTs and soft synths kind of peppered throughout the album, but the core sound of the record is really the 3 synths that we took into the live setup, which is the Juno 106, Moog Voyager, and the Prophet 08, and that's kind of the sound of the album, more or less, and it's also the sound of our live show.
Well, Machine is actually just a conduit on our stage for the for all the vocal samples, for all the samples that we've constructed, stuff that we felt strongly about playing live in some way, you know, that was not possible because we'd need 3 layers of keyboards or whatever, blah blah blah. But I can physically play all that stuff, cutting up vocals.
Like the vocals on Mother We Share.
Exactly, yeah.
There's also some bits and pieces of percussion that you play on the Machine.
Yeah,
but
like fun stuff.
So essentially the drums are driven by Ableton straight out
Right.
audio.
Right.
Yeah.
We use a lot in the studio the Dave Smith, Roger Lynn Tempest, which is just about the finest drum machine I've ever used. Like,
it's a beautiful piece of equipment. I think it's really well designed and thought out in terms of the workflow and the operating system. It seems to tick all the boxes for me.
but it's got that, I think the kind of the roughness that we try to maintain throughout our whole sort of recording process. We've never come to the idea of recording music from a dance perspective ever. It's always been from a as live a possible perspective. You know, we don't quantize things. We try and play drums in if we can. We play all synths in. The rougher it is around the edges, the better. And I like that about the Tempest. It's kind of got a bit of grit to it. So you need to hang about with a drummer, don't you?
Yeah, and then they always show up late, and you know.
And they eat all the rider. They get drunk all the time.
They cost money to keep them in beer. Overrated. No, it's something we've spoken about, having a drummer sort of back and forward. Over the past year we've been playing live, but I think we're quite keen for the moment to keep things just quite tight between the 3 of us. I mean, maybe it's something we'll talk about with the second album, depending on where that goes, you know, in terms of the drum production and so on. But, you know, I like the physicality, the visual thing of having an actual drummer on stage, but, you know, do I like it that much? I don't know.
I would be quite comfortable with the idea of a guy with a bunch of pads and a bunch of percussion, like a station where he was physically playing the beats, but the electronic beats. Like, I just can't be arsed listening to cymbals on a stage anymore. I'm so over someone smashing a cymbal in my right ear. Like, just like, seriously? I'm done with that.
Years of playing in noisy rock bands have brought us to this point.
I mean, those, I guess before Lauren was involved in the project, there was only maybe 3 demos that were kicking about. It was very, very early, and each one sounded completely different. Like, it was, we really had no roadmap at that point. It wasn't until Lauren started working with us that we developed a clearer idea of where we were going. In terms of actually having the writing of the vocal melodies, that's something that comes from day one. Like, in the studio, the tipping point might be a drum loop or a keyboard or like a 2, 3, 4 chord pattern, whatever. The second thing that usually goes on is the top line, and there's always this moment in the studio, this like moment of excitement when the idea comes, and then it's like everyone's running around trying to record it, so you don't forget it. Like,
it all kind of happens simultaneously in a weird sort of chaotic way.
The fun thing about this band is that they like the skeleton of a song can appear in 5 minutes sometimes. It's like that can go from nothing to a full layout in 5 minutes, but then spend 2 months like actually turning it into what everyone will hear.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the other way around. It's like, you know, it's kind of a, it's,
Yeah.
and working in the way that we work, you know, is absolutely necessary to make that happen. If we were on the clock and we were spending money in a recording studio every day, it would be totally impossible to make the music that we make. I think a lot of people are experiencing that now, and it's cool. Like you know, computers have got so quick that anyone that can watch a YouTube video can have command of a DAW or a sequencer and like build up. Might not be the greatest music in the world,
Well,
but you'll get there.
It doesn't make you good.
Like, if you have an interest, you know.
But it does, like you say, open doors. It facilitates, you know, people with a computer just to jump in and see what they can do. You know, it's a great thing.
A DI rack.
We just got these little Korg Volca guys.
Yeah.
We just got those three. I think there's three, isn't there? There's what is that? Bass, beats, and keys. Those things are probably going to appear on the record and potentially live.
Yeah, I'd like to get the Tempest on stage doing some stuff as soon as possible. I think there's a lot of talk of probably adding a station in the centre of the stage for Lauren to utilise her percussive skills that she has, and she has them in abundance. But we're trying to put Baby in a corner on the drums and that. Like,
yeah, that would be cool to set that up with the Tempest and have trigger sounds of
and
that.
just have a bunch of pads and some more. I'd like to be a bit more flexible live right now. It doesn't feel like we're completely tied. I mean, Ableton makes it possible for us to kind of experiment with things and change things if we wanted. But right now, we're staying pretty faithful to the record. I think as this live show moves forward, it'll be a lot more experimenting with effects and not jamming on stage. I don't think we'll ever jam.
Yeah, but it could afford to be a bit looser.
We'll expand and it will be looser and less rigid.
People get used to the album as such, like once everybody stops seeing each other, it's a new run of that same show.
Exactly, I think that's one of the reasons why we don't stray too far from the record at the moment, is that the first 9 months of us playing live, no one had heard our record, and we were effectively going out on tour trying to play the album to people and then sell the album through people hearing it for the first time live, which has been relatively successful up to this point, and that's awesome. But now that people are sinking in with them, we can move forward in the next 9 months and do something that's just a wee bit more satisfying.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to just as we write new material, just like adding another song here and another song there, and hopefully in the next sort of 6 to 9 months there will be a bigger pool of songs so that we can structure the set more.
Oh, the problem is right now every time we write a new song we have to buy a new piece of gear. That's like, that's our inspiration. Gear is our inspiration. In order to write another record, I'm going to need another 10 new toys.
I'll buy you a kazoo.
Well,
we'll get 2 just as a backup.
Yeah.